Let me be clear, my. Good morning. Good morning. Good
I
morning.
don't know what to
I
say.
I'm sitting here in the nation's capital. I'm looking at like one of the greatest basketball players. Some little highlights of one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Dr. J, and that rock the cradle dunk against the Lakers in the '80s. I'm thinking like we better find some sort of enjoyment because this whole country, whole world, is, as they say, is going to you know where and you know what. I mean, the headlines are just absolutely insane. The Supreme Court handed Donald Trump a major. Angela Connolly said, "Cut the. We got what? Angela, you want to be the producer?" She said, "Cut the music. We can't hear." I couldn't hear myself either, Angela. But Supreme Court. I mean, it's just horrible. They handed Donald Trump a free pass. He will never be tried for these crimes that we've been writing and reporting about over the past couple of years now. January 6th. You might as well just let all the January 6th people out too. Might as well. Supreme Court said, you know what? Trump appointed us. Was it three of them, and they have a what 6-3 majority anyway, and we are not going against him. And that's that. We're going to help him out in a major way. We even taking the pressure off Eileen Cannon down in Florida, but he will not be tried because the Supreme Court has decided to take up his immunity case, presidential immunity case. They said they'll take it up in April, and they'll have a decision perhaps in 5 months, which means he cannot be tried. Angela, that's okay. You can be bossy all you want. There's no problem. We have no problem with bossiness. But he will not be tried. And if he wins the presidential nomination, if he wins the presidency, that $500 million that he owes probably will somehow go away as well. Especially when you got people like Fat Joe doing commercials for him. we ain't letting Joe off the hook right that easy. A glimmer or a sliver of good news is that they avoided a government shutdown, at least temporarily. Again, all they're doing is kicking the ball down the road. This is the fourth time that they've agreed on a stopgap measure to fund the government. And so instead of going to bed tonight, if you're a federal employee, if you were going to DC and wanted to go to a Smithsonian, or if you're a recipient of WIC, you can breathe a little easier this morning, at least temporarily, again. And they won't shut down the government. So that's where we're at there as well. And of course, you know, the official leader of the Republican Party is now Donald Trump, with, as Power 96 says, freeze frame Mitch leaving the Senate. He's not leaving the Senate, actually. He's just stepping down from the leadership role. That he sabotaged the Supreme Court and sabotaged, as we know, democracy. He sabotaged Obama for sure. And he has wreaked havoc. And I was saying this earlier, too, that telling Greer, I said, you know, I was listening to President Biden's remarks, you know, talking about him and Mitch being friends. And although they, on policy, they don't see eye to eye. And Senator Schumer, Senate Majority Leader Schumer, saying the same thing. You know, we fought on policy, but we have the utmost respect. How do you respect a grand wizard of the KKK? Really, I mean, he's not literally. At least we don't know that, but he behaves that way. He has done so much damage to not just, listen, this is the black press, but it's not just black people. He's done so much damage to all people of color, Latinos, Asian, everyone. And he's got an Asian wife. This guy is he was a one-man wrecking machine as the Senate Majority Leader. And again, as the Senate Minority Leader, he was an absolute terror. And Power 96 says that's why he's not a Democrat. Power 96 is not a Democrat because he says that Democrats are always trying to take the high road. He says, I go low as the devil. He's not down with Michelle Obama on her slogan. But they'll just, you know, he pretty much, right, when you think about it, has handed the reins over to MAGA Mike, House Speaker Johnson there. And I mentioned about Trump's $500 million judgment. He asked the court yesterday, they went to an appeals court and asked them, could he put up $100 million bond instead of the entire $454 million? And the appeals court said, absolutely not. And then he says, he laments, well, I'm going to have to sell some property. That's the idea. That is the idea, Donald. That is the idea. I mean, he's boosted his wealth anyway. This idea of, you know, we know he exaggerate. He always exaggerated his wealth, but then he became president, and we saw that report come out of Congress last month that he reaped the benefits, did things like sell favors to foreign governments and raked in a lot of money. Last estimate I saw yesterday is that with all his holdings now, he's probably worth a good $5 or $6 billion. So, in assets anyway. So yes, he's going to have to sell some of his properties, but that's not a big thing because if he takes office again, he'll just recoup those things, right? He'll easily, I should say, be able to recoup those. And then he's got so many Jim Jones type followers that they're trying to pay his bills. In fact, you know, they did this GoFundMe. They've started this GoFundMe to try and pay his bills. the RNC is being taken over by his daughter, and she is proposing legislation to MAGA Mike and company to be able to, not legislation, but whatever rules that they may have in the RNC to be able to pay his legal bills. Florida, they tried to pass a bill. His daughter-in-law, not his daughter, taking over the RNC. Florida tried to pass a bill. They tried to pass a bill, and it's still in the House, the state House in Florida, to pay Trump's legal bills. So not only will the Supreme Court have made sure that Trump will not be held accountable for any of this crime. So all this, the stuff that we've seen with, even with Fani Willis, it's all become unnecessary. It's unnecessary. It's a waste of time, I should say. I was at the president's headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware yesterday. And mostly it was a 3-hour meeting, and most of it was off the record. Some of it was on the record. And one of the things, and I had it a moment ago, they passed out with this sheet of all of the things that Donald Trump did and didn't do, and all of the stuff that Biden has done. And I didn't need that sheet. Jasmine Harris, wonderful, wonderful young lady, who is she's the campaign's director for Black media, and she used to work for Senator Schumer. She put all this stuff together. She helped put all that together. I didn't need. We talk about what Biden has done for people of color a lot on this program, and we talk a lot about Trump. You guys talk a lot about Trump too. What the man behind the curtain that he is, the puppet master that he is. So the point is, they know they have a fight on their hands. They know that they have a major challenge, and they, just like everybody else, they don't have all the answers as to why 75 million people voted for a guy like him in 2020, and why probably obviously millions more, or millions of people anyway, will vote for him this year. We don't know how many, but what they are kind of counting on is that there are the so-called never Trumps or never Trumpers, and that people are seeing behind the curtain now. We will see. We will see. That's their fight. Also this morning, the estate of Donna Summer has filed a copyright infringement lawsuit against Kanye West, also known as Ye, or the Black superhero, and Ty Dolla $ign. Is that how you say his name? Because it's Ty Dolla $ign. I don't know how to say some of these guys' names because it's not always what it seems to be. But he allegedly used Donna Summer's, he sampled Donna Summer's hit in his new Vultures album, and they're not happy at all. And this is not the first time. Ozzy Osbourne and others have sent cease and desist to Kanye West for sampling. So we'll get into that a little bit. Donna Summer, one of the things with Donna Summer, she was Miss Disco, wasn't she? She was like the queen of disco. Kind of unsung too, and in some ways unsung. Didn't she play like Urkel's mother? Was it Urkel's mother or his aunt or something? At one point on that show. What was the name of that show? Family who? Family Matters. And Wendy Williams' publicist, Sean Zanotti, who is featured in the docuseries, has come out now and slammed the series, the producers and folks behind it, saying that they're exploiting Wendy, and Wendy would not have wanted to be seen this way we'll talk about that because there's a lot of questions as to why she was actually originally behind this. And so we're not sure why, what happened as to why now she's against this. But yes, Greer, Donna Summer did play Urkel's mom or aunt in Family Matters. I remember that well. In fact, she sang on the show too. Yes. See, it's rare when I'm right and Greer's wrong. So I gotta kind of, hold on to that moment. Y'all don't understand. When these sophisticated Black women, they be beating you down. Y'all gotta understand. So I gotta hold on to it. I gotta win. I got one win. Oh God. So the Supreme Court, as we said, agreed to take on this case. And so the thing with this, just to put it to bed this morning, it's going to delay the trials because they take precedent. They've agreed to hear it in April. They took their time, as you knew they would. And when they did that, because you remember this is back in last fall when they decided to say, yeah, we'll consider it. We'll consider taking it up. And there's something with the court, once they decide to consider, they can do it immediately. They can stretch it out. And of course, in this case, they stretched it out. And they used the latest date on their docket. And yes, David Youngblood threw him more than just a lifeline. They basically, for all intent and purposes, said nothing can happen now. As Jack Smith and Fonnie Willis and Alvin Bragg up in New York, as they try to get dates together and get the court to set dates, now that's out the window. And so what they'll decide is if when he allegedly committed these crimes, I guess we can continue to say that because he hasn't been convicted, and that's what he will always ride on. Never been convicted. He hasn't been convicted. So when he allegedly committed these crimes, he's saying that that's okay. I was president. When I told those people to storm the Capitol, when I encouraged those people to storm the Capitol, I was the president. I could do whatever I want. That's what he said about the documents too. In fact, that's when he first started saying it. I'm the president. I can do whatever I want. And he said it recently that a president can do whatever he wants. And it goes back to 2016 when he ran for president and he said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not have any consequences. It goes back to 2015 when he was seen on Access Hollywood with young Bush, the journalist who I can't think of his first name, but who I like, who I've talked to a lot of times in the past. Seen on Access Hollywood, saying they can grab a woman, he can grab a woman by her private parts, just on GP. So he told us all of this. He told everybody all of this. And here we go. Here we are. This guy with Mitch McConnell backing him up. And we know Mitch, after January 6th, gave that speech on the floor saying Donald Trump was responsible for that chaos. And people tend to forget or misremember that 5 law enforcement officers lost their lives as a result of that. The party of law and order, right? But he told everyone this. And he and Mitch continued to get together. Mitch, laughingly and boldly acknowledging that he stole Supreme Court judges from Obama, and how Obama left all of these judge openings, federal bench openings, which Trump, if you remember when he was in office, every day he was nominating like dozens. Him and Mitch jammed the federal courts with their judges. And then, of course, they stole 2 Supreme Court seats. So there you have it. This guy, and this is why when he said he's going to be a dictator on day one, in his 4 years in office, he did everything he could to be a dictator. And now it's like you let someone get away with something extremely serious. You don't punish them, and you send them a signal that you're a Teflon. Imagine what he's going to do when he gets back in office. Imagine what he's going to do when he gets back in office. And the other part of him getting back into office, he's made that clear too. And you guys can say, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that." He's proven you wrong already. So he says he's said he's never leaving office again. He's never leaving it again. And who's gonna change that? Because he's gonna wreak havoc right away. He's already got the Supreme Court. They are bought and paid for. Yeah, we can celebrate. People celebrate. Ketanji Brown Jackson is on the court. Black woman's on the court, and that's great. But you might as well put me on the court. Powerless. And it's certainly not a knock on her. She deserves it. She absolutely deserves it to be on the court. She and 8 other people like her should be on that court. But he's got the federal benches locked. Biden's been doing a yeoman's job trying to offset Trump's appointments by appointing many himself on the federal bench. But it's like too little too late. Obama's failure was not filling those benches. That was one of his biggest failures, to allow his successor. See, he never thought, and this is why you can't, and this is one of the billions of reasons, certainly not the foremost reason, but one of the billions of reasons I don't play around with politics. I just report on it. But you can never predict that people go by the polls. You can't go by the polls. And Obama really believed that his successor was going to be Hillary Clinton, and that America wouldn't have this problem. And yes, Joe Biden's biggest failure will be not expanding the court, not the Supreme Court. This idea of playing this legacy game, this is how it always have been, and we're going to keep it that way. That's how Joe Manchin was with the filibuster. That's why you couldn't get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed. That's why you couldn't get the John Lewis Act passed. They want to play the game of tradition. And Biden, when they had the House, the Senate in his first year, I should say, because it's still his first term, and probably his only term. Let's just be real right now. There was a lot, especially the Congressional Black Caucus. They said, let's expand the court, and part of his reason was tradition. Part of his reason was, well, what if a Republican president get in? You can't play the Republicans don't play the what if game. Mitch didn't play the what if game. And see, that's the mistake. That's the thing when you hear like these black folks, and we talked about this yesterday. I mentioned this to Jasmine yesterday. When another problem that they have is when you have these high profile black men, Stephen A. Smith, the latest, and others. Of course, we've named them every day. When you have these black men with big platforms spew out misinformation, it's you lose. You get lost in the sauce. But they did not expand the court playing the nice game. And now this is why Donald Trump and anybody following him, any president following him, because this will now be history. Any president following him will be able to pretty much be like Stalin or Hitler. And it's just they got every reason to point back to Trump. Every reason to say, yeah, I said presidential immunity. So you don't have to worry. Listen, you know how if you ever run into, we was driving not long ago, a couple months ago or so, in Delaware, in fact, and the president motorcade was on the 495 coming up the other way. And you see all the Secret Service and all, and in fact, a better one. A guy ran into a Secret Service car, and Biden was in a restaurant in Wilmington, and the Secret Service swarmed the guy. Remember, he's a black guy. You don't have to worry about Secret Service. The president can just walk up to you and blow your head off, and I got presidential immunity. That's the precedent. He can now, more realistically, will be able to call up Vladimir Putin. Hey, I got some secrets here. Give me $50 million. It's not conjecture. That's what's going on now. David Youngblood said Obama failed by keeping all the money with Obama for America, leaving no money for the DNC. He said McConnell refused to allow judges to even be considered. Yeah, they been there. And the shutdown, folks, was averted. We said that earlier. It's another stopgap measure. So those who work for the federal government, those who receive benefits, social services, they got another reprieve. And many, you don't have to work for the government to be affected by the shutdown. We all would be affected. A lot of businesses would be harmed. And yet they keep kicking it down the road. So they're going to kick this up until March the 22nd, I believe. And then hopefully till November. They'll keep the lights on until November. Power 96 just announced that he got his 3 checks today. so he's happy. And so Mitch McConnell, again, this guy, yeah, I know you guys can't get enough of Mitch, huh? Yeah, I know you can. And the fact is he's not leaving. He's not leaving. He's 36 years in the Senate. And so he will continue as just a seated senator. We mentioned earlier too that Trump went to the appeals court. He wanted to pay $100 million to put a stop to the $454 million plus judgment, and he was denied that emergency request by an appellate court in New York. See, the New York courts are not favorable to Donald Trump, nor should they be to anybody, right? But we know that Florida courts are very favorable to Donald Trump, which is why that documents the case. I mentioned that yesterday. As I said, I'm not a lawyer. Maybe there are ramifications for it, but and now it's all moot. But I was saying that drop the documents case and go right to the January 6th case. Take Eileen Cannon out of the equation. I was telling another a guy from Radio One this yesterday too. We were talking, and he's like, he says, I'm not a lawyer either. He said, but that sounds like a good idea. So, I mean, it may not even be plausible because I would imagine that those involved have thought of something like that. You got to request Greer from Power 96 to play the song Freeze Frame every time Mitch's name or picture is mentioned. Now, I mentioned earlier too, Donna Summer, when Kanye and Ty Dolla $ign, they actually asked her, her estate, for permission to sample the song, the 1977 song I Feel Love. And they firmly said no. But yet, when Vultures 1 was released, a song with strong similarities to Donna Summer's famous tune was there on the track list. And so a copyright infringement lawsuit detailing all of that was filed against Kanye and Ty Dolla $ign. Donna Summer's husband and the executor of her estate, Bruce Sudano, filed the lawsuit. And they saying we don't want to have anything to do with Kanye West. The album actually went to #1. Vultures went to it went to #1 on the chart despite everything. And then they attacked it. They made sure Spotify took it off its platform, and I think Apple even took it off its platform too. And so they it was listening. At least Billboard had it at #1 as well. So not only listening, they were downloading. They was paying for downloads. They was buying it. But Donna Summer had 3 consecutive double albums. 3 consecutive double albums reached #1 in the 1970s. She, of course, died of cancer in 2012. And the lawsuit that was filed in Los Angeles was a federal lawsuit in federal court in California. Said that they, quote, wanted absolutely no association with Kanye West's controversial history. We know Kanye has the black superhero. He said, how are you going to run up on a superhero? You can't approach a superhero, he said. Oh, gosh. Kanye. First was yesterday talking about Kanye. And I met some folks, about 3 of them, who said they knew him. They once knew him and how nice he was. And I guess the operative thing is they once knew him. And so how is Wendy Williams doing? It depends on who you ask. A new Lifetime documentary that we talked about on Let It Be Known last week, Where is Wendy Williams, which premiered on Lifetime, is casting a doubt on Wendy's care during filming as producers and members of her camp place blame on one another. Sean Zanata, who is an author and became Wendy's publicist in 2021, went on television and slammed the documentary's producers. Sean said, I felt that Wendy was being exploited. She thought we were focusing on the comeback of her career. She would be mortified, Sean says. There's no way you can convince me that she would be okay with looking and seeing herself in that way. She says, that is not the project that Wendy signed up for. That's not the project that the producers brought to me. That's not what I told her this was going to be about. She says there were a lot of good moments. None of those good moments were shown in this documentary. Well, of course, the producers of that documentary have disputed Sean and the critiques that she's given. Sean actually had put forth a documentary of Wendy a few years ago under a different title. And it was, according to Sean, more positive and more about exactly what she said Wendy was expecting, sort of a comeback type documentary. Yet, Sean says that they uh, twisted it around and made really showed Wendy in a very bad light, and she's not happy at all. And there have been other criticisms of it as well. And Wendy has people who are close to her who participated, and she participated. Now, having said she participated, we also, even in the clips that we saw of it, we also saw that she may not be in a position to make those decisions. And that's the unfortunate thing. That is very, very unfortunate. But these documentaries don't ever turn out for these. R. Kelly's documentary finally got him locked up. I'll never forget years ago when Michael Jackson was alive, this documentary that he did, Living with Michael Jackson, I think it was called, was Living with Michael Jackson or something like that. The guy from Great Britain did the documentary, and prior to the documentary, Michael and everyone else was so excited. Oh gosh, we're gonna see Michael Jackson up close and personal. And he climbs a tree, and it was horrifying. He climbs a tree in the documentary and says, "I'd rather climb trees than have sex." It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. But that was also the documentary that led to that helped lead to more child molestation charges against Michael at that time. So these documentaries, they never seem to work for these celebrities. And unfortunately for Wendy Williams, she is not appears to not be in a state of mind, especially with this, obviously with the dementia and other diagnoses that they have released. Obviously not in a state of mind, but it is just that type of day, folks. That type of day. I'm going to go back to watching Dr. J dunk on people, and maybe I'll rewatch the 1986 World Series or something. I don't know. I need some enjoyment on when the Knicks were good. They're good now, Power 96. They're good now. Maybe I go to the Garden, go watch a Knicks game. Thanks for watching. Let it be known. That's the latest. We will see you again tomorrow.